Good morning, dear Dharma friends. Hello to those of you joining us on Zoom. We're trying an experiment. I feel sort of naked. I don't have a computer in front of me. Check my fly. I'm okay, I think. We have Paul Levine at the controls over there, which is very comforting. What feels a little weird to those of you on Zoom is that I don't see you. And I'm not sure that I like that in the long run, but it's really easy being here with just one world. So, we're called to practice with the ringing of the Burmese gong. That's a temple gong. It's understood to ring in all the realms. So right now the room is filled with heavenly beings, and the hell beings are looking up from below, and the dogs and cats all around are wondering, what are we doing? We got to go somewhere. And the humans have come here from all parts of the city and from the world, really, on Zoom. So, we're part of something very old as human beings go. 2,600 years. Actually, it's not that old when you think of, we've been here for 100,000 or more with this brain. But anyway, as we count things, 26 centuries of human beings doing exactly what we're going to be doing. That's pretty amazing. People did this even before the internet. In fact, someday, before too long, Jim Dalton and I spent quite an inordinately long time, I would say yesterday, putting this TV screen up there. It pulls out and faces the group beautifully well. But I have lots of Buddhist travel slides in a way, but the one that's coming to mind just now is, there is just west of it's in Bangkok, but Bangkok goes on forever. There's a garden's the wrong word, there's a campus, like a university campus, and in the center of it there's a large building. Underneath, it's at least the size of 2 football fields under the roof, complicated roof, but it's open. And there are, what's the word? Marble slabs, white marble, that are about 6 feet high, 7 feet high maybe. And in them, there's gold writing, and I think it's Thai writing. But the content of it is the Pali Canon, the many volumes of these teachings that have been passed down through the millennia, and the entire canon is there. It's huge. You go down row after row of these marble slabs, and the idea was, we will write this down in such a way that it cannot be lost. There are other ways. There are lots of digital ways it's being preserved now, and through time. It was finally written down 300 years after the Buddha's death. They chanted it up till then. And speaking of the chanting, the most beloved, the most translated, the most recited of the Buddha's teachings is the Loving Kindness Sutra, the Sutra on Metta. And I have a friend named Ron who lives in Canada. He's come on my retreats for 20 some years. In fact, he didn't make it to one this year, and it was like, where's Ron? He had to work. But he lived in the villages in Thailand a long time ago. And he said that it's not uncommon in the early morning to walk through the village and you hear the parents chanting this with their children. So it's not magic. It's kind of an attitudinal reset. What should be what do I choose? What do I want as my attitude toward life and other beings? And this is a pretty nice one. So we'll chant it together. I'll start with the first line, the one that's in parentheses, and then you'll notice there's these little marks. There's little down pointing arrows, sort of, and an up pointing, and they are a slight tonality upwards and downwards. And I do it marginally well, but you'll get it quickly. Now let us chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great and the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. That's a nice aspiration, isn't it? So, dear friends, some of you I've known for years, and some of you may be here for the first time today. We're all here on a short trip through a human lifetime. So let's take the seed of our awakening. Let's not put it off. We can hold the belief that there's something wrong with me, and I've really got to do a lot of fixing. And if I do enough retreats and practice enough over enough decades, then maybe I'll wake up. That's quite a limiting belief. Why not wake up right now? We can support this journey we're on with taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And it doesn't mean becoming a Buddhist. The Buddha wasn't a Buddhist. He didn't teach Buddhism. He taught the Dharma. And he wasn't a religious person. And Buddhism in its true form isn't a religion. It's actually a scientific endeavor. What makes it science? Well, there's some hypotheses. One of them is that nothing's permanent. Another is that no matter how we try, no matter how wealthy we are, no matter how young and strong we are, we never arrive somewhere in life that we've got it. We're satisfied. We finally got it, right? I got the degree. Now I'm it. When that happens, there's another moment, and then there's another moment. And there's a third hypothesis, which is well, we have a very strong experience of a separate self. And we've needed that in order to survive as a species. That belief is a delusion. Because what we really are is everything that happens to be in this form right now. There's a couple of other hypotheses known as the noble or the Four Noble Truths or the Four Ennobling Truths. One is that there's a great deal of suffering in our lives. Not just the suffering of pain and loss and so on, but there's a lot of suffering in the fact that we never get to arrive anywhere. We never get to stay anywhere. No one that we love gets to be with us for very long. And there's a cause for the suffering, which is that we want things to be different than they are. And any wanting of anything to be different than it is suffering, just by experience. And then there's a third truth, which is that it's possible. It's quite possible for human beings to suffer less and less as we wake up. So that's a few theoretical notions. And then there's the Eightfold Path, which is the model of, if you want to have this experience, which is the experience the Buddha had, you can do something. one piece of that doing is what we'll do here today, is meditation. In terms of science, if you want to study phenomena far out in space, you build a Hubble or you build a Webb telescope, and then you watch. If you want to investigate anicca or impermanence, you turn your own awareness into an observing capacity. Refuge in the Buddha. And so let us stop, turn awareness inward, and notice the fact of aliveness that is the body. We're not looking for something extraordinary. Actually, the fact of a living body is beyond extraordinary. And this body has temperatures, experiences temperatures. What I would call my feet are cold. The hands are warm. There's life in the hands. There's life in the face. There's life that shows itself as the sensations of in-breathing and out-breathing. There is the phenomenon of a living mammal, breathing in, breathing out. And there's another very mysterious phenomenon, which is awareness. Somehow or another, there's something that knows what's happening. Consciousness. And equally mysteriously, it seems as though we have some influence over what awareness attends to. And so we can take as a spiritual practice, as a home base, being present with breathing. And we can notice very easily that there's a beginning of each breath, a rising to fullness of each breath, a decline and then a vanishing. It takes a certain subtle effort, doesn't it? There's the initial application, as it's called, the coming home to breathing in and out. And then once that's established, the target is found, there's something called sustained application, which means we do our best to keep awareness in that spot. Not rigidly, not with violence, with intention, with love and compassion. Of course, there's more to life than breathing in and out. You've probably noticed some activities of mind. Thinking, planning, remembering, worrying. In the Dharma reflection today, I'm going to talk about the 5 hindrances. But here they are, they're part of our everyday life. The mind can be pulled out of simple presence into a desire. I want something. I want my mind to be quiet. I want something nice to happen this afternoon. I want my ailing child to get well. Or it can be I don't want, disliking, the mind striking against, I don't like this mental state, or A fun one is, I wish he wasn't talking. I'd like to just meditate. Or, I don't like this pain in my back. Or. Another great category is restlessness, agitation, and worry. The mind that's trying to figure something out. It thinks it'll be happy if it can just get this thing figured out. Or there's a life circumstance which is not resolving itself, and so the mind worries. Or sloth and torpor, dullness, falling asleep, disinterested. And then there's doubt. Why am I even doing this? What's the point? None of these are a real problem. They're just what is. And it is from them that we construct, or with them that we fertilize the garden of our awakening. Because that which knows is vastly more powerful than them. Mindfulness comes from the deepest realms of our being, far deeper than mere restlessness. And so we, time and again, come home to in-breathing and out-breathing. It's quite an art, meditating. How hard should I try to concentrate the mind? What does it mean to settle back into the present moment? Not so much what does it mean, but how is it? So we are observing the sensations in the body, the aches and pains, the pleasures. We're observing the coming and going of the breath. We observe the 5 hindrances. And we can observe the basic tonality of the mind. Is this a mind which is easily concentrated? Or is it dispersed, restless? Is the experience of this moment one of ease, maybe profound ease? Or is there distress or dukkha? Is that sense of connectedness that we call the heart, is it open, spacious toward ourselves, toward others? What is our attitude toward the suffering that we experience? Is it kind compassion, profound love and acceptance, or rejection? All of this and much more shines at us. And we help to bring it into focus by abiding in breathing and out breathing. the very fact of our sitting here is an act of love. Love for ourselves, love for each other, love for our loved ones, and in fact for all beings. We can be quite specific. To recite a few times internally the exquisite mantra, I love you, with your name at the end. I love you. Imagine holding yourself as a baby and saying that. Or as a toddler or a teenager, or whenever something really hard happened in your life, and really hard things did happen in your life. Holding yourself at that time, I love you, I'm here for you. And love becomes compassion when faced with suffering, so it's, I'm here for you, however you're suffering. I'll do my best to help. Not from someone else, not from anybody else, from you, from your deepest wisdom. I love you and I intend to help. And becoming aware of the life in the body, from the toes to the legs to the pelvis and the abdomen and chest and back and sides, the fingers and hands and thumbs and forearms and upper arms, the whole body, the neck, the jaw, the cheeks, the eyes, the face. We could have a moment of prompted gratitude. Who could possibly imagine something as complex as this? Right now, millions of red blood cells dying every second and being replaced. The salinity being monitored and evened out, and the glucose and all those cells dying and being reborn for all these years. It's a miracle. We could have a moment of gratitude, thank our bodies. Thank you, dear heart, for pumping all those times. Tens of millions of times. And please now become aware of your body where it touches the chair. Pressure. Allow awareness of where the clothing touches the skin to become present. Allow awareness to awaken in the face. In the cheeks, in the mouth, the lips, the tongue. In the eyes. When the eyes are closed, we can still feel them. Or more accurately, their aliveness can be known. And noticing now the intention, the plan to open the eyes. But before doing so, why not think of a kind thought, a blessing thought, to extend to the people around you? Something simple like, may you be healthy. May your relationships go smoothly. May you live with ease and grace. May you be free from anxiety and depression. May each breath become a great long sigh of gratitude. And now picking one of these thoughts and think about it. Think it. Rotate it in the mind, in the heart, for the persons around you. May you be healthy. Simple. And then ever so slowly notice the intention to open the eyes, and then let your eyes open. They open. Takes effort. Lift those eyelids. And then seeing happens. How does that happen? Strange. Seeing. Awareness of seeing. And now, to the degree that you're comfortable with it, you can push yourself a little bit. Let your eyes look around the room. Meet other eyes while containing that, may you be healthy, may you be free from suffering. Don't hesitate to turn around if you want. Those of you on Zoom, you can do it with each other. Seeing. I often marvel at what happens with eye contact, right? The one that really, I guess it always gets me, but if I'm sitting in my car and I look over 2 lanes of traffic away and someone meets my eyes, something happens, right? And then most often they look away. But it's a really fine practice to walk. It doesn't have to be a busy place. It could just be a park. And of course, one has to be careful about not getting in trouble with someone assaulting you, of course. But when it's safe, to walk through like an airport and be open, be really open. Pretty safe in airports for most of us. And to see every now and then someone will meet your eyes and stick. And it's not the stick, but it's like, oh, you're awake too. I find myself every now and then just a little bow, and people bow back. It's like, oh wow, great. I'm glad you're conscious. It feels a little scary to say what I'm just about to say. I really like not having a computer in front of me. It's different. I'm different. You're so utterly beautiful. I have a couple of announcements. Maybe this isn't even an announcement. In recognizing our interbeing, our profound even interconnection is the wrong word because we're one consciousness. So in recognizing our one consciousness, let's remember that we're not the first people to walk on this land. There's been people here for 10 to 15,000 years. And we are one with them. Right? And it turns out there hasn't been much respect for the cultures that were here before us, all over the world. So let's wake up to that reality and be sure it never happens again, or that we can maybe slow it down. When I was in Turkey with my daughter 15 years ago now, hard to believe, somewhere we came across the story of Noah's Ark. And it's the Black Sea. Is it the Black Sea? No. God, my geography is going to blow me away here. What's the Mediterranean? No, anyway, it's Black Sea. It would seem as though there was an inland lake that was significantly below sea level, and that the archaeology and geology people have really established this to have been true. And it's a region with great earthquakes. And the barrier against the water from the Mediterranean broke. And the water came flooding into this lake. And the people who lived around the lake moved up. Oh, and there exists, is it the Black Sea? I think it is. There exists a beach, a freshwater beach, all the way around this, at like 90 feet underwater. And now sea level's up here. It was more than 90 feet. And all the archaeological remains, which are underwater, of the earlier group that lived there, they were all wiped out at the same time as the great flood happened. And the people from in here came in and took over. And such phenomena have happened. It happened in Southeast Asia. It's all over the world. There's been these times of not caring about each other. And it's happening right now on the planet. So in our reflections on interbeing and caring, we can keep that in mind a little bit. And we can look in our own culture where racism and classism and all these isms are still causing us incredible suffering. And to be welcoming and sensitive to each other. So that's that one. Another is, just as they pop to mind, in early December, there's a one-day retreat class I'm going to give, which is called A Map for the Journey. And it's the first time I've ever done that. And I have a model that from which I operate, which is primarily Theravada Buddhism, insight meditation. Secondarily, and very importantly, Jungian psychology. And as I go through my life and as I work with individuals, that map helps me a lot to say, oh, looks like you might be stuck here, or looks like I might be stuck here. Harder to see my own stuck places. But I'm going to share that day, that map, to the best of my ability. It's kind of the map of psychological health moving into spiritual awakening. That's on the website. We have our other teachers here. Jim Dalton's going to lead you in some mindful movement in a few minutes. We also have Kendall Summers, who teaches every second Sunday night. And Gregory Malouf, who teaches on Wednesdays, Wednesday Wake Up. And Doug Pullen, who's here on Thursdays. Oh, not to forget this. I'm going to try again. On Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, if you can come, and Maggie, would you put this out to the volunteers too? If you can come with gloves, a wheelbarrow and shovel, and a rake, or just yourself. Before then, I'm going to have 8 cubic yards of compost delivered to the street. I'm also going to hire 3 day laborers. There's a place downtown you can hire these guys that are amazing. And we're going to be here at 9. And the plan is, I had 18 yards of supposedly 3-way soil blown in, fancy machine. It turns out that they didn't mix it right. They won't acknowledge that they didn't mix it right, but there's no compost in it. And so we now have it slopes beautifully away from the concrete, but it's not going to grow grass worth a damn. And also it'll dry out in a heartbeat because it's just sand, basically. So there's a bunch of work to do. We need to lower it 2 inches by the cement and move it over into the lawn, and then bring in the compost, and then we have a little rototiller and reiki sort of things to make it flat, and then I will fertilize and seed it by Thursday afternoon. That's my prayer. Big job, but with enough hands it won't be bad. So, there's that. Am I missing anything of... Oh, Maggie, come on up, please. Could you switch the camera, Paul? Would you come over here? You'll be in a different camera.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, wonderful Sangha. A couple of things. First, Kendall Summers, one of the teachers, teaches on the first Sunday and the third Sunday of every month at 6:30. And I have no idea what Sunday it is, so, but if it's the third Sunday, she'll be online tonight. Please go to the PIMC website. It's like new and it's easy to use and efficient. And I really want to do a deep bow to all of those of you who participated in the Karma Yoga Day. We had this amazing group of Sangha members who just tackled this, 5,000 foot high.
18 yards of dirt.
Of dirt that's now mud, which will become grass. So a couple of things. We're going to do a potluck in December. And in November, I'm collecting some folks to help me do kind of a cleanse of the kitchen, which I don't think has been done in a while. So I'll send out a notice about that. It would just be like a Saturday morning. And then I'd like to start a caring committee or caring circle for PIMC. And I've never done that before, but I was wondering if there is anybody here who has participated in something like that or knows how to do it and would like to help me or advise me. That would be lovely. So I'm Maggie. You can reach me at Maggie Donahue. No.
Maggie at portlandinsight.org.
Thank you. See, it pays to meditate.
Yeah, my memory's terrific.
Anyway, you can find my name on the website, and I would welcome your participation. Thank you very much.
Is there anybody here who participates in the BQN group on Sunday nights? Well, I'll speak about it then. We have there's a group, Be Queer Now, which is at 6:30 also on Sunday nights, every Sunday night. And they've been going for almost a year now, and it's a fine place to visit, to meet. Anything else? Anything else? Can I stop? I guess I will. There's a province in far western China where they teach very interesting and unique forms of Qigong and Tai Chi. And Li Hu Wei, sometimes known as Jim Dalton, has materialized. And even he doesn't remember his birth there. But he incorporates these ancient Chinese practices with mindfulness. And I think he's going to do it now. Gotcha. You wondered what was happening there. So Jim will do his movement thing, and then I'll be back to speak about the 5 hindrances. And after that, there's tea and coffee and goodies in the living room.
Thank you. Robert has been, am I in the right place, Paul?
It's very choppy for some reason on the second camera.
So I should move like this? Or,
Yeah, maybe just have them go behind you.
whoops, all your peripheral. All right. I don't have a screen, so I have to rely on Paul. Am I in the middle at all? Okay, very good. So this that's called Jim is in the middle of a screen that's going out to a whole bunch of people on Zoom, and here I am with you, and I've been doing this for 15 years, I think, and at one point, Robert introduced me as Li Po. So it's sort of like he introduced me today. And so I looked up Li Po to see who I was, because it's possible, you never know. And it turned out he was an alcoholic hermit. Wow. Now there's an aspiration. I want to grow up just like Li Po. But he wrote some incredible haiku, and I'm sure he did Qigong. I don't know why I'm sure, but it must be memory. All right. So let's get grounded in today, in this spot, in these feet touching this floor, breathing. And then take the back of your hands and place them on the small of your back, and just move forward and back, not lifting your heels or your toes, but just, feeling the center of gravity moving across the soles of your feet. During the meditation, Robert mentioned his feet were cold and his hands were warm, and I thought, my feet are cold, so I'm going to bring some love to my feet. It doesn't take much movement, but suddenly there's deeper sense of aliveness. Let's go side to side. And again, we don't have to go a great distance, but just a little bit of change. Did I say change? Anicca, a little bit of change is really soothing to the body. Now, the personality doesn't handle change very well, but the body loves it. Isn't that interesting? I never thought that thought before. Now let's go around in a circle. Life in the feet and knowing it. Go the other way. change that's very soothing. Anicca, the other side of the story. Okay, now let's come to stillness and standing like a tree, just allowing the arms to relax out of the shoulder sockets, having the elbows a little bit away from the body. Why do we do that? Because then the rib cage is free to expand in all directions as we breathe. And we breathe all the time, but when we bring our attention to it and slow it down a little bit, especially the out breath, there's kind of a release and a letting go that's automatic in the rest of the body when we set our intention to make the out breath a little longer. We have a rhythm of breathing that's been happening all of our lives. And when we pause and bring attention to it, there's often a wellspring of gratitude. This is my friend. I've had this friend for life. This is my connection to the life on the planet. And it doesn't take much effort to stand up and relax. And there's a feeling of wholeness and healing with a little longer breath. Now I'm going to turn my toes to the side of my body, the dominant hand. So both toes are going to my dominant hand. You can do the same thing and sink back onto now you have a back leg and a front leg. And then raise your hands. Again, we're after round shapes for the hands so that the energy can move through the body without any disturbance, without any obstacles. And Robert's going to talk about hindrances, he says, today. So one of the hindrances is desire. And so it'll take me a minute, but we're going to get to that. But at first, feel the weight in the back leg and then rest the front leg. How do you do that? I don't know. It's a mystery, but it does. You can do that. Then what's happening with me is my non-dominant foot is engaged with gravity and uprightness and aliveness. And my dominant foot is resting. I'm going to take my dominant hand and move it forward just a half inch or 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to let my non-dominant hand rest. So I've got engaged foot and resting hand on one side of the body, and I've got resting foot and engaged hand on the other side of the body. How can I hold that all together? I can't do it. Some sort of awareness captures all that. Once we point at it, once we intend to capture all that, we can feel engagement and rest simultaneous on opposite sides of the body. We're kind of complex beings. Now, if we just shift the weight from the back to the front foot and reach that dominant hand out, we have a little journey. We have a beginning when we're engaged in the back, and we have an ending when the front foot takes more of the weight, and then it releases it. And we go a little bit farther with our dominant hand, and then we come back to just parallel and evenly balanced one hand with the other. It's reaching and we call this storing. Just holding the hands stores the energy. Reaching, and then come back to storing. And then we'll shift, place our hands towards the earth like we're pressing two balloons into warm water up to our waist. You know how a balloon would be floating on the water, and you're pressing down just a little bit. And then feel the symmetry in your body now. Everything's resting. There's a little bit of effort in your hands. But then point your toe to the non-dominant side and sink into the back foot. Reach the opposite hand. And we have engagement, rest. Engagement, rest. One hand's engaged, one's resting. One foot is engaged, one's resting. Reaching, change, returning. There's a beginning, and then there's a journey and an ending. And then you're storing with your arms, and you're engaging with one arm. Storing. Now we've got this memory in our, if we're human, I mean, all of us, I think, have this memory of reaching out for a glass of water. So we can be aware of desire. I want to grab that glass of water and bring it in and drink it. So I feel the desire, I feel the completion. I feel the desire, I feel the completion. Desire is welcome. It's part of what we're made of. If I say, I feel desire, it feels different than there is desire. There is desire. Desire is welcome. Desire is welcome. Coming back. Pressing the balloons into the warm water. Breathing. Where's the life in this standing form? And how could you apply these simple movements and moments of awareness to sitting in meditation, watching desire arise, feeling my desire, feeling the desire, and then desire is welcome. What's that journey like? You can apply mindful movement to mindful sitting. Yeah, it might be an experiment that would be useful to you. Okie doke. I'm going to open my arms, take a deeper breath, and remind you that there's a Qigong workshop every month, usually on the third Saturday, but didn't work out this month. So it's the fifth Saturday.
The gloves are sitting
Yeah,
beside
5 Saturdays in
on that
October.
area of the counter that you
So Lee
normally
Poe
use.
can come
And
next Saturday
don't go
from
into
9
the
till
kitchen
1.
though for about 10 more minutes because I'm cooking
And
some
then
stuff
we'll
in the microwave.
pause at the end and
I'll clear it
open
up.
our hands and
Is there anything I can do for you?
gratitude.
Are you
for
really
the
fine?
chance to practice together like we are today. Thank you.
Can you breathe okay? And then
There were three more things in kind of the announcement realm. I want to thank Jim Dalton we were here for a Northwest Dharma Teachers Association meeting, a long meeting yesterday, and after it, Jim stayed for almost 2 hours to help me put this up, which now does this. And it also gets pictures on it sometime, but we're not doing that today. But it works. It works great. I am sorry I don't have it for today because it would be useful for the talk I'm going to give. The other thing, those of you on camera, I'm walking off camera again, is this. Before this, Connie is here, our wonderful librarian. We have an amazing library. It's very well organized and functional. And Connie is there, will be there for 2 hours after this. So you can take out all kinds of wonderful reading. I have more from my office I need to get in there. You willing to take some more books? Yeah. It's been an interesting journey with my books that early on, when the library started, I gave maybe 3/4 of them to the library, but I kept the others, the important ones. And then I gave another 3/4 of those, and then I kept the really important ones. I never read them. You know, the books that I'm working with, I tend to have on my iPad. So there's some really fine ones, special books to come in. Okay. This is a Burmese monk's bowl. It's gotten kind of battered. In 1979, very complicated story of going to India with my new wife and 25 students from Lewis and Clark College, and we managed to get entrance into Burma for a week, to spend a week with Tangpulu Sayadaw, he was kind of like the Dalai Lama and the Pope, all in one. He was like the most revered monk in Burma at the time. He was 82 years old. And so I got to spend a week there. Did novice ordination and did some very intensive practice for those days. It was very important. And when I left, he sent me with my monk robes, which is very odd, and also this bowl, which is also very odd. And this, as a much younger person, walked down the main streets of Rangoon carrying this in my monk outfit with a bunch of other monks, and people came and put food in it. We didn't walk on the concrete, however, because the people from the shops had brought their carpets out, and we walked on carpets instead. But I've used this as a symbol for all these years. It's now there. I don't know that that's the best place. It was once in front of the door. There is a facsimile of this in wood to the left of the door, and its purpose is to receive offerings, to receive your dana, your generous. And it looks like a hollow device, but it actually is a very powerful transformer, because it transforms your work into Dharma. It's amazing. How'd you get there? You weren't there before? No, okay. Whew. Shocking. Dana. It's the foundation of a spiritual life. Because dana means this. See this? Watch what happens inside. It's mine. All of a sudden, we got the Berlin Wall here. Or we have the wall at our southern border. But if I say, see this? It runs the sound bar, which I got to figure a way to connect over there. If you want to use it, you can have it. In fact, if you really need it, we'll replace it. You can have it. All of a sudden, we're connected. And this entire thing, this PIMC as an organization, as a functioning phenomenon in the world, happens because of generosity. We don't have a membership, and that was by design. In 2000, when we incorporated, We had a long conversation. Shall we be a membership organization or a non-membership organization? And we chose non. So you can't join PIMC. You can belong, but you can't join. So you can also, the way that's the most functional actually for us is if you go online and make a monthly contribution, because then it's very predictable. And it remembers to make your contribution when you forget. It's like my OPB contribution. Okay. Oh, one more thing. A short statement of Marshall Rosenberg's attitude toward, I'm making a request of you, right? I'm saying, please support PIMC. It's a really noble place, a noble thing to do, and you'll feel good about it. And please fulfill my request only if you can do it with the delight of a small child feeding a hungry duck. So then when you write the check or push send or put something in this or back there, don't do it out backwards. Don't do it. Do it very consciously. I am contributing to something really important. Okay. Thank you, Paul. I'm really liking this. I still have my iPad. All right, that'll work. I'd like to call to the altar of our hearts Ruth Dennison. Tangpulu Sayadaw, Anagarika Munindra, Bhikkhu Rastrapal, Matt Flickstein, Ann Kafori, Don Nickerson, Joseph Goldstein, Jack Cornfield. These are just a few of the teachers who have taken me and lifted me up. Ruth Dennison for 44 years. 44 years. And Kafori, who's retired now, I'd already done decades of therapy. And I did EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing training for working with trauma. And she was the senior supervisor for it. And it turned out she lived here in Portland. So I went to see her, and I saw her regularly for 12 years. So I've been so supported. So supported. Wow. And please remember one of those times when you were really at rest. Maybe it was after spending a day climbing a mountain. Or I remember my early meditation before I knew about meditation was some of the most powerful of it was high. I lived in the Alps for a winter, did a lot of climbing in Europe, and you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're out in the snow, You get your crampons on and you're high, so the air's thin, and there's a step, kick, breath, breath, step, kick, breath, breath. And the mind goes quiet. Maybe you experienced it nursing a baby or rocking a baby. Or maybe you were just out in your back garden and your mind went quiet. Or who knows, maybe you were knitting or crocheting or doing woodwork. Several years ago, there's a concert, Winterfest, I think, Winterfolk, here in Portland. They've been doing it for many years to raise funds to get people off the streets into homes. And there was this incredible handmade guitar for raffle. And about 5 tickets. I was kind of depressed that night. And I kind of made it a little deal. If I win the guitar, I won't be depressed. And I won. And it's beautiful. And it's actually in my broadcast studio at home. I play it sometimes. But the point I'm trying to get to with that is the fellow who made it, whose name is escaping me, who lives in Vancouver, Washington. I went and found him. And I said, I'd like to offer you a couple of private meditation sessions. And he said, sure. And he came. And it turned out that when he works on guitars, his mind goes silent. He's not anxious. He's not thinking. He's just there. So that's the state I'm trying to remind us of. We all know it. It's what we think vacations are going to do. Well, that's a normal, healthy, quiet human mind. And maybe we could just plop into that here for a second, even for 2 seconds. Between the thoughts, when we have enough concentration and enough mindfulness, there's this breath. It's really nice, isn't it? It's actually more satisfying than any state of high stimulation that we get. It's very content. Now, I have been a stimulation junkie my whole life. I've done lots of very intense things. And maybe it's age, I don't know. But as much as anything else in my life, I like to just stop. Had an hour and a half this morning. It was nice. Woke up and the mind was very quiet. Went to my spot on the couch and just sat there for an hour and a half. I no longer think of it as I'm going to go meditate, because I'm really not doing anything. I'm just hanging out. And then I watch the various neurotic patterns come through. There's something I am worrying about, a relationship issue. And here it is, the mind is real quiet. And then, what about that? And then I'm lost in that for a while. And then, oh, look at that. Look at that. That's back. How interesting is that? Gone. And then there's just sitting here and breathing. It's such a relief. Well, I have a poem here by Martha Abshir. You'll remember Martha. She was part of our community back in the early 90s. This poem was written in 1991. It's called Cowgirl on a Bucking Zafu. The Zafu are these little red cushions. Sometimes when I meditate, I feel like a cowgirl on a bucking zafu. Whew, almost made a mistake. Jeez, That was terrifying. Yeah. God, I'm all blushing. It'll never be the same. Oh, God. Oh, I am embarrassed. That's very interesting. I am embarrassed. What is that? It's shame, isn't it? Oh, I almost got in real trouble. And it would have been on the video. It would have gone viral. All right. I can't read. My eyes are. Oh, dear. All right. Whew. Sometimes when I meditate, I feel like a cowgirl on a bucking zafu. Usually when I sit, my zafu trots along in that familiar gait of confusion or delusion. I think I know what I'm doing. Other times my zafu just ambles along, nibbling a tender shoot of the future here, a succulent leaf of the past there, delicious, lazy, aimless, moving from pleasure to pleasure. I try to remember to be present. And sometimes she stops altogether, dozes off for a moment, falling asleep, nodding awake. It's all I can do to stay in the saddle. Other times she's antsy, restless, discouraged, can't get comfortable. Nothing works. Why try anyway? Sometimes I stay. Sometimes I quit. Once in a while, I can feel my zafu tremble and twitch in gradual warning, but other times she explodes with anger or fear, rage or terror, bucking and running, snorting and farting, wild, out of control. I try to stay calm. Whoa, girl, I say. Slow down. Take it easy. Breathe deep. It's just a feeling. Let it be. Let it go. Mostly, I just try to keep my seat. Thank you, Martha. Thank you for the water. That's the best, isn't it? We have so much of it we can water our lawns. We can leave taps running. Swallowing, liking. Little chlorine flavor, disliking. So there's a mind which is not disturbed. And it's very pleasant. It's not pleasant in the yes, it's pleasant in the whew. So one might imagine, well, I'm going to learn to meditate, and I will simply choose to have this mind, usually we say my mind, focus on the breath, and I'm going to enter that tranquil, relaxed state. And then we try. I'm going to put my watch, my clock out here so I can see the time. Boom, boom. Okay. But we discover rather quickly it doesn't stay there. And many, many people start to meditate or try to meditate, and they don't last long because that's all the instruction they have, or that's the poor understanding they have. And what the foundation of that is that when I meditate, it'll be calm and pleasant, and that'll be it. And everyone in this room, you've discovered that's not the case, because it isn't the case. So how do we practice when that's happening? How do we actually practice in the middle of our lives? And this talk that I'm sharing with you on the 5 hindrances is something like when I teach a weekend retreat or a week-long retreat or a 10-day retreat, I always offer this the first morning or the first afternoon. Because it's the key. It's the key to the doorway to how to practice deeply. So I'm going to make gestures in the air for the 5 important things to remember. One is wanting. It's over here. And it is, I want it. I want it. I really want it. In fact, I am in complete lust for it. I want it. Or it can be just minor. I wish this was different. I'd like that. I'd like this. Its opposite is hatred, aversion, disliking. And it goes all the way from a mild, like when I noticed the chlorine, or it was tiny, just chlorine. And it can go all the way up to the kind of anger and hatred that results in murder, right? So on the one pole, as a mammal, we are pulled toward objects of desire, and it's a good thing we are, because if we weren't, we wouldn't procreate, and we wouldn't eat, and we wouldn't survive. You can't be a mammal, you can't be a living organism actually without some of that movement toward, or a sentient being. Similarly, the disliking and the pushing away, we have to learn there are things we don't want to touch, for instance. I remember a long time ago, how long would it be? 37 years ago. Younger than that, 38 years ago. My son, my firstborn child, my mother-in-law and my first wife came as a package deal. I met them at the same moment, and we lived together for 17 years. Her name was Joan McLaughlin, a wonderful human being. Anyway, she heated with a wood stove. And so we set up a situation where Luke, in his exploringness, got to touch the wood stove when there was a very small fire in it. So he didn't sizzle, he just touched something really unpleasant. And we set it up perfectly, and he touched it, and he never went near the stove again. And we didn't have to be yelling at him, or he knew. It was like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. So there's these forces, desire and aversion. The 3 roots of suffering in the Buddhist understanding are greed, hatred, and ignorance. And the ignorance is, we don't pay attention to what's actually happening. We ignore it. It's a verb, ignorance. So greed, hatred, and ignorance. So seeing these as, pardon me, part of the 5 hindrances, doesn't mean our intention is to get rid of them, but it's to become very wise about them. And to notice there are some phenomena, particularly that occur in mind, that all they do is cause suffering. Wanting, I want this, I'm obsessed about this, I want this. Or I don't want this, I don't want this. And we can go through our lives so upset, constantly upset, with liking and disliking. This making sense? Is this familiar to you? I'm thinking of an acquaintance from quite a while ago who turned out not to be really a friend because it was intolerable to be with him. But he always, everything was liking and disliking. It's one of the problems with very highly refined taste, like gourmet foods and gourmet this and gourmet that if you don't have 20 years ago, a woman student took my then partner and I to Tibet to go walk around Mount Kailash, and she's very wealthy. And it turned out that to be with her was terrible because she only wanted the best of everything all the time. And when you're at 18,000 feet on a mountainside in Tibet, it really isn't, it's not okay to be asking the porters to boil water so you can wash your hair. Right? It was very difficult. So not to get stuck there for too long. Lust and hate. There's another polarity, which is restlessness, agitation, and worry. The mind that is jumping from one thing to another, is agitated, is worried. It's really not very pleasant, is it? I mean, it can be really horribly unpleasant, but it's really not pleasant. I have that same circumstance I mentioned in my life. It's, quote, worrisome. How's it going to turn out? What should I do? Should I write them? Should I? And I've thought all those thoughts, or this mind has thought all those thoughts 100 times. They're not useful in the least. So this morning, as that was arising, I was noticing, it was noticing worry. And the worry comes with a little tension, and it's very small, but it's a worry. And compared to when the mind is just, it's actually quite unpleasant. It's dukkha. Or it can be dukkha if there's resistance to it. Restlessness, agitation, and worry. And, I don't want to miss the chance. Why not there? Goodbye. Oh, here they are. Yes, great. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. Hi there. Meet my friend Sloth. Hi, everybody. I visited a sloth rehabilitation center in Costa Rica last year. My God, sloths are cute. Baby sloths, whew. And tapir, sloth and torpor. I saw a tapir as well. So they're buddies, they travel together, and they are this in meditation. Okay, I'm not very bright, not very alert, low energy, too much energy, too little energy. Sloth and tapir. We don't have many props in meditation, so it's good to use them when you got them. So you might come to meditation and your life is in a little bit of turmoil or a lot of turmoil. You can hardly find your breath, or maybe you can't find your breath. What to do? Look at it like it is. It's filled with restlessness, agitation, and worry. Or it's falling asleep. That's the meditation object. You don't have to stop it. You may well not be able to stop it. I have a favorite sort of horrible restlessness and agitation story. After 17 years, my first marriage ended with my wife demanding a divorce, and it wasn't even on my pull-down menu, and it was awful. And I'd get the kids to bed. I was really the primary parent. And I'd get the kids to bed, and then I'd go sit out under my cedar tree. I'd been there many, many, many times. It was a beautiful cedar tree. No rain underneath it. It was so thick. And I would sit there and go crazy. Oh no, what will happen? And this, and what about that? And what about this? And what about that? And that would go on for a long time. And then in the middle of that, it would stop. And mindfulness would be present. And a mental note would happen. Wow, this is restlessness and agitation. The Buddha was right. The mind is insane. Gone. And then another half hour would go by, another hour, long periods of time, totally insane, totally gone. And then stop. And then there might be noticing, wow, there's so much hatred of this. And there's enemy images of her, but it's just tumult. There's no way I could have done that if I had thought what I was supposed to do was be with my breath. Because the breath was almost non-existent. I mean, it was happening, but in terms of as a consciousness object, it was just blown away. And then the sun would come up. Whew. Incredibly powerful meditation. Moments of sanity in the midst of chaos. Another time, in the midst of a conflict, relationship is a trip, isn't it? Trying to get along with another person. I'm getting better at it. It's a good thing. Don't have much time left. But anyway, going to the park. Some of you know. Doesn't matter what park. And it's got a 7/10 of a mile walk around it, and I couldn't walk around that park. I stomped around the park, watching the enemy imaging and gone. And then after this first time around, there was sort of sanity, and then the second time around, it got slower and slower until whoa, there was space again. And then this is working with the 5 hindrances. The 5th one, doubt. And doubt is what I like to call the practice killer. Because almost everyone who meditates for some time and then stops, they ran into a doubt attack that they didn't see. One of the primary antidotes for doubt is the company of good friends. At least one good Dharma friend. Because they can ask you, which of the 5 hindrances are in the ascendant right now? And it can be doubt. And the story, I must have told this 100 times. I've been a Dharma student for 10 years, and then I've been with Ruth Dennison for maybe 5 or 7 or 10 years. I was at Brighton Bush Hot Springs, and before that, when I first came back from Asia, I fell into a Buddhist cult, where I spent 5 years serving a fellow who I later realized had a severe narcissistic personality disorder, as well as having some amazing understanding of Dharma and some psychic gift. But there I was sitting in the Dharma hall at Brighton Bush, and all of a sudden, really what came on suddenly, I realized Ruth Dennison was a charlatan, that all this Dharma stuff was bullshit, that my entire private practice, my profession, was based on lies. And that's a bad experience. Right? It's a worldview shattering, horrible, desperate experience. And I just wanted to get out of there. But how do I leave? Because what I used to do with Ruth is she would teach and be with people late into the night, like 10 o'clock or even 11 sometimes. And then they would leave and I would go in and we would visit for an hour or two in the middle of the night. But how do I leave? I don't want to say goodbye to her. God, if I walk in that room, I could get pulled back in. And so I left and I went for a walk, and a long walk. And after half an hour or so trying to be with my walking, it occurred to me, what would I say to a student who was suffering this? And I realized, well, it would be to ask them, which of the 5 hindrances are operational? Is there desire here? Yeah, I want to get out of here. Is there aversion? Yeah, that woman. And this feeling, terrible. Restlessness and agitation, you bet, lots of it. Sloth and torpor, none. Doubt. doubt. And then in a relatively short time, there came this cascading realization that it's like an insight had been boring down and down and down. And it's like fracking. Sometimes you hit a layer which is just explosive. And that was an explosive layer of doubt. And guess what came right after it? A whole new layer of faith. That the practice helped me move through that doubt. I highly recommend that you read a marvelous book recently published called Mindfulness for a Happy Life by Robert Beatty. We don't have any copies of it. I should get some on hand. There's only one in the library, which is crazy. But it actually is a fine. I've grown into really liking it. When I finished it, it was like, oh God, I'm glad it's over. But the chapter on the 5 hindrances, I say really I didn't write it, because my co-author, my with person, Laura Musikanski, she did the final pulling together of that one. And she says they were my words, but I don't think so, because when I read it, it was just so good. So I'll leave that as something, a tease to pull you to read that on the 5 hindrances. So desire. Desires can be very tiny. You could be sitting in a quiet mind and very content. And then I want an ice cream cone. Where the hell did that come from? Or another one, restless. This actually is not uncommon for me. I had next Sunday I'll be gone. And the following 5 days, I'm going to a little cabin at the beach to be quiet for 7 days. And I'm not sure who's teaching, but somebody is set up. Gregory's got it set. But there, in the middle of the night, I put away my watches and time, and I get up and I sleep when it happens. And then, so in the middle of the night sometime, very calm, just at ease. Oh, I've got to remember this when I get home. Oh, I've got to do that. I have this long to-do list. I mean, it's crazy. But to notice, these thoughts come up unprompted. It's not like someone's thinking them. They just think themselves. And to watch how that happens, and it comes with a little gasp. It's like, tiny, but much smaller than I'm doing here. That's restlessness and agitation. It's always there, ready to pop up. And however, when mindfulness is on, it doesn't go anywhere. And this is in some places in the Buddhist world, they talk about karma burning. That the vipaka, the ancient, all the influences on me on all of us from time immemorial, from all species, and our own personal actions, their greed, hatred, and ignorance are incipient. They're ready to be poked, or they're ready to erupt. However, when one has mindfulness, or when mindfulness exists, it's not even that someone has it. When mindfulness exists, this impulse toward a karmic action arises, and it dies right there. Boom. Doesn't mean one can't act. In fact, one becomes much more skillful at acting. But being able to not go with the familiar neurotic patterns is such a relief, and is character transforming over time. Is that making sense? It's a big leap, but this is not a theoretical or hypothetical training. This is absolutely where the rubber meets the road. Making life better, because so many of the things that pop up, so many of the things that pop into this consciousness, I don't particularly want to act on. I don't even want to repeat them again. You know, I mean, if a thought arises, like, well, thank you for sharing, and then there can be a aversion to that, or it can be just wide open. Thought comes up, unpleasant thought goes away, and we then are. They call it the purification of consciousness. We're less and less compulsive about acting out. So, antidotes. The first primary foundational antidote to the 5 hindrances is mindfulness. To live in a consciousness spacious enough that we can notice greed when it arises. We can notice when we go down the rabbit hole into restlessness and agitation. We can notice. Mindfulness notices. With greed, there's some other things we can do. We can reflect on what happens if I pursue this object, right? Various options are arising. I was diagnosed as diabetic a few months ago and have great good fortune. It turns out that I have a wonderful diabetes and weight loss doctor who's helping me tremendously, such that my blood sugar is no longer diabetic. However, yesterday, all there was to eat was starch. And my blood sugar went nuts. I have a little device I can measure my blood sugar very easily. And all it takes is one bagel. And it's not dangerous, but it's ridiculous. So I don't have to do that. I can notice the impulse to do that. And then there's, here's desire, wanting. Well, the consequences of acting on this desire aren't good, so I won't. Very practical. Another antidote to work with, if you have something you're desiring and desiring and desiring and desiring, and it's not a moral and ethical catastrophe to do it, do it. Do it mindfully. You really want to do this thing? Well, if it keeps persisting, do it and see what happens. See what the price is. Aversion, hatred, loving kindness practice. If there's someone you really are still harboring a resentment for, don't let that go on. We don't want to spend the rest of our lives wasting energy in resentment. I mean, if you think of someone that you resent, maybe pick a ridiculous one, like, this thing happened to me when I was 5 years old and I hate that person. That's been over for a long time, right? Why do that? It's optional. Of course, we may need some really good help and so on to deal with that kind of thing. The other thing is, if it's a minor disliking, the Buddha had lots of great suggestions. One is, if there's someone you're really struggling with, give them a gift. Think of something they'd really like and figure out how to do it. These are just a few simple things. Restlessness and agitation. Interestingly, one of the recommendations is clean your house. They call it cleaning the basis. So where you meditate, make it nice. Concentration is a big help it's the antidote for restlessness and agitation. It's like focusing on one thing. Sloth and torpor. This is not in the usual Buddhist list, but it's the top of my list, which is get enough rest. The average American is at least 2 and probably 3 hours a night sleep deprived. Right? Before we had electricity and these things, we slept 2 to 3 hours more every night. So most of us are going through the world profoundly sleep deprived. And so when we stop to meditate, we're just really sloth and torpor-y. If you are rested and you're getting sloth and torpor, which can happen, you can be really deeply into a meditation retreat and rested, and you run into sloth and torpor because it's the mind just blurring out rather than facing something. Stand up, turn on a bright light. Jack Cornfield's teacher, Ajahn Chah, told him to go sit on the side of a well. Right? And go do walking meditation, do some exercise. And finally, doubt the company of good friends. First off, just notice it, but then the company of good friends. To be inspired. I'm so fortunate to be able to play this role because I swim around in planning what I'm going to say and this and a couple of other deeply engaged classes that I teach. So the Dharma information stays really top of mind. It's very helpful. So, see, it's just 1 minute after 12. Time to stop. It's worth memorizing the 5 hindrances. Desire and aversion, restlessness, agitation and worry, sloth and torpor, and doubt. There's another category which is very important, which isn't in the traditional list, which is emotions. And you can fit it in here and there, but it's useful to know, I'm really angry right now, it's aversion, or I'm really sad, I'm grieving, I'm desperate. And to be able to find those in the body where they exist, and then to be mindful of them and to set ourselves free. The Buddha said, the taste of this practice in the beginning is the taste of freedom. The taste in the middle is the taste of freedom. The taste at the end, guess what, is the taste of freedom. And that can sound kind of, I don't know, fluffy, but it's true, isn't it? When you're in the middle of a worry attack and when I was there under the tree, tortured, I mean, that was a very crazed young man. He wasn't crazed in a way of acting out, but he was crazed in a way of out of control mind. And then mindfulness popped on, and the crazy person was gone. There was an awake presence. Didn't last long, but that was the taste of freedom. So that's the 5 hindrances. Be kind, be kind, be kind. When asked about, I've heard in person the Dalai Lama say on 2 or 3 occasions, my religion is kindness. He also said to 220 Western Buddhist teachers gathered together, don't try to convert people to Buddhism. Help them be more kind. Have them stay in their own religion, but have them be more kind. And so in this practice, we don't want to use the 5 hindrances and, it's like, there's a hindrance, SWAT. It's more, there's a hindrance and how do I love that? And one last thing. When you see your partner or friend lost in a hindrance, it's really skillful and loving to say, you're caught in sloth and torpor. Not. To see where they are and to love them in that. Because they're doing the best they can. And they're lost in worry, or they're lost in anger and irritability. And it's impersonal. It's not like they're doing that, it's the weather in them right now. Okay, I want to sit for just a second. Thank you for listening. Yeah, thank you for listening. May all beings know happiness, the causes of happiness, and the path to happiness. May all beings recognize dukkha, the causes of dukkha, the end of dukkha, freedom, and the path to the end of dukkha. So we're going to do a little closing, just a couple of minutes, and then you're invited to come through the magic doorway here into the living room. Is anybody here for the first time today? 1, 2. Oh, welcome. As I like to say to folks in such a circumstance, I hope this was helpful. And what I'm thinking in the background is, I hope this totally revolutionizes your life. If it's a first encounter with the Dharma, I mean, that certainly happened to me when I ran into the teachings. It was like, who knew? Who knew there was something I could really do and a path that worked? That was wild. So please let us make a big circle, including coming up here. Let's leave it on that camera, I think. Let's make a big circle and we'll do a closing chant. Thank you to those of you that are there at home. I'm glad you were with us on Zoom today. Yay. Let's pack in close here where the camera is so that we can. There it is. And it's okay not to hold hands if you're concerned about disease and things like that. COVID does not get transported through contact like that. Okay, so standing, aware of the feet. Give the hand on your left a little squeeze, quite personal. I'm so glad you're here. And the hand on your right, get them back, get the person on your right. And, ha ha ha, I'm glad you're here. And then let's take a moment to look around the circle. It's a lot of us. Look at that. Seeing ourselves in our many forms. Oh, I look like that. Who knew? And let's close with the translation of the Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam, may all beings receive all blessings, to the simplified, may all beings be happy, in English 3 times. And then sadhu, which means may it be thus. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So let us see one another again. And then we get to carry out the great experiment. One of the 3 great hypotheses is that all things are impermanent. Is it true? Let's see if this circle is permanent or impermanent. Here we go. Wow, it's impermanent. Good thing, I think. So please come join us for coffee, tea, and hanging out. And please help by putting the cushions away on the pews. And the chairs go in the corner over there and by the door, the exit door. Oh, shit.
Boy, you are freed up without that darn computer, aren't you?
I hope there was sound. I must have been sound.